Okay. Let me explain something.
Oh, please.
You can't put a value on what we do.
Funny. I have put a value on what you do.
Well, if you won't budge, then I'm afraid we have no deal.
Then we're done. Would you like to hear my favorite passage from Shakespeare? Take the money.
Welcome to Money Unplugged. I'm Chris Hill. Thanks for being here. Today on the show, I talk with Douglas Boneparth, certified financial planner and president of Bone Fide Wealth, a wealth management firm that he runs with his wife, Heather, who, as you may recall, was a guest on the show a few months ago. They wrote a book that came out last year called Money Together: How to Find Fairness in Your Relationship and Become an Unstoppable Financial Team. And this was another great conversation, and honestly, that is all I am trying to do with this show. There are literally thousands of podcasts about money and investing, and a lot of them feature guests hyping different stocks and giving hot takes on the market, and Money Unplugged has none of those things. The goal of this show is simply to have, hopefully, thoughtful conversations about investing, behavior, and the relationship that we all have with money. And to that end, Douglas Boneparth delivered. He was open and honest about his own experiences with money and the relationships in his life. And as you will hear, not all of them were great. Some of them were flat out painful. And he did not shy away from talking about them. And we also had some laughs too. So let's get into it with Douglas Boneparth. What is the earliest memory you have when it comes to money?
I remember being in the back seat of our car with my father and grandfather in the front, my brother next to me. And I don't know the context, but I just remember my grandfather turning around, pointing at me and saying, "And this one over here doesn't know the value of $1." And
wow.
Yeah, I kind of looked up and I was like, maybe I was playing my Game Boy or something. I don't know, but I didn't like that. I don't know if I was young. I don't know quite if I understood what they were talking about or what he was getting at. All I knew was talking about money. I was involved and it didn't sound great. So that's my first memory around money. Yes. My grandfather, and interestingly enough, my father and grandfather, who are in charge of me and my brother having an entrepreneurial spirit because they were entrepreneurs and they were in business together before I was born. I just knew that there was some gravity behind what he was saying.
Your father was in finance, wasn't he?
He was a financial advisor as well for quite some time, for more than 25 years. But that was maybe his third or fourth act. He did other things before becoming a financial advisor.
Was money discussed in the home? I mean, clearly It was discussed in the car, but I'm wondering if in the home it came up.
Yeah. It was pretty much an open conversation. I wish there were more direct conversations around like the application of money, but it wasn't a taboo topic at all. I mean, when your father, works in personal finance, he was always happy to teach us more probably about the business of wealth management than actually wealth management. Maybe he assumed we just kind of picked that up as we kind of went along here, but it was not a guarded topic at all. We were pretty open about it. I think most topics that are deemed taboo were not taboo in our household.
That sounds refreshingly healthy.
Yeah. It was a good place to express yourself. You could have open conversations, which was yes, actually quite healthy and lent itself to being able to do that in my own household here as an adult and a father.
What was the first job you had as a kid?
So I've never really worked for anyone but myself, with one exception. So I'll kind of break it into two pieces here. The first entrepreneurial job and the first and last actual job of getting paid a W-2 from someone. That job was working for Blockbuster Video in high school. Rest in peace, Blockbuster Video.
Oh yeah, rest in peace.
Thought that was the coolest job I could possibly have as a nerd, and I for some reason got it in my head I had to work there, and I begged them to hire me until they did, and I probably worked there from around 17, 18 years old, so junior, senior year of high school. And I actually loved that job for a whole host of reasons. I feel like what a timepiece of a job to have too, considering Blockbuster doesn't exist anymore and we stream everything. And then the first job I remember having that wasn't that, my brother and I, he started a computer repair company in the early days of the personal computer, the rise of the PC, when people were getting hooked up to the internet, when your grandparents got a computer and were incredibly afraid of breaking the thing. Like, I give my brother so much credit. What started as, we grew up in South Florida in Boca Raton, the retirement capital of the world. So we were surrounded. What a great market to dominate if you knew a thing or two. And, one bit of privilege my brother and I had growing up is that we always had a computer in the household. Like, we'll take you back to Tandy 8088s, like pre-Pentium stuff, for those who know their microprocessors. And we had access to that, and we learned, and really my brother took the lead on that. And he started going around the neighborhood helping, elderly folks, learn the computer, fix their computer, reformat a hard drive. That was 3 hours of work right there. He started at $5 an hour. By the time he left the college and let me run the show, we were charging $30 an hour. I mean, I'd work like 2-3 hours, only allowed to work on the weekend. So Saturday morning, hit up the retirement homes, not even really joking with that. And, put 2-3 hours in, you had $60, $90 cash. And that's probably more money than any, 17, 16-year-old would ever need to, pay for fun on the weekends. So that was the first job as an entrepreneur. And then imagine doing that with the Blockbuster job too. I was making good money.
You're making good money. And also it strikes me as an interesting pair of jobs, in part because what you learn on both those jobs is transferable to what you're doing now. In Blockbuster Video, you have a job where you are waiting directly on the public. And I think there's no substitute for that. And I've talked with other guests about that, whether it's waiting tables, working in a retail shop of some kind, there's no substitute for anyone can walk in off the street and you're working there and you have to deal with them. And
Chris, sorry to cut you off, but just imagine the ruckus that was telling someone they had a late fee returning their videotape.
Oh, yeah.
I had a retired assistant district attorney from New York flash his badge at me. This guy must have been like 72, obviously retired. I'm like, what do you think showing me your badge is going to do? You didn't return your tape. He got so mad. Bless his heart. But yeah.
Well, you take that, and then the hustle that comes with any sort of entrepreneurial job, particularly when you're young. And in some cases, if you're up north somewhere, it's knocking on doors and offering to shovel someone's driveway. And in the case of you and your brother, it's knocking on doors in retirement communities saying, hey, we can help you out here.
Absolutely. The customer service side of things, the way you interact. So at the Blockbuster job, I'll never forget the manager doing a sales contest. Yeah, whoever could sell the most video game, unlimited video game passes for the month it didn't matter what you won. And I was so motivated by that. I crushed that competition. So talk about really putting yourself out. That's sales, right? So everyone that came up to the counter, I would try and sell an unlimited monthly pass. And it was actually a really good deal. So you just find the kids that you knew were renting video games, make sure their parents were within earshot and say, hey, hey, mom, dad, come over here. Your kids, I can tell, already rented 4 games this month. You paid, however much. You might as well just get this pass. Summertime's coming up. And yeah, it worked. It worked. So you could really sharpen some skills there. And then, on the computer repair side, especially since a lot of the clientele were older, right? Talk about really an exercise in patience. I mean, we'd spend 30 minutes trying to teach some nice old lady how to check her email on, AOL dial-up here, and they're worried they're going to click the wrong thing. I remember telling anyone, like, I will come back and fix your computer for free if you break it. Just because there's just no way you can. Based on what you're doing, right? Shy of you throwing this thing against the wall, you're not going to break your computer. And I just said that to kind of like, hey, it's nothing to be afraid of here. Ease into it. But you're 100% right. Like, I go looking back at all of that. What an amazing way to set yourself up for helping people with their money, right? And something that arguably is closer to their heart than. Well, you can make an argument. People's computers and electronic devices are pretty close to their heart these days. But as far as renting, videotapes and DVDs are concerned, that's pretty low barrier to entry.
Let's move on to college. You went to University of Florida. Do I have this right? You got a degree in public relations?
That is correct, Chris.
Was that something you were interested in from a career standpoint, or was it something you just thought like, no, this seems like something that'd be interesting to study in college?
No, I'm going to eat some humble pie here. I had a lot of fun that first year in college, and everything was, hey, a little bit.
That's almost hard to believe.
Who would have thought? I mean, we ended and I went there with Heather, and we ended our college career at UF with 3 national championships in a row. So if you're a college sports fan, we're arguably the most spoiled college sports fans on the face of the planet. No lie. So had a ton of fun being a bro, fraternity life, pledging and all of that. And my grades, unlike my academic career in high school, which were great. I was an A-B student all the way. I got A's in classes I really liked, B's in classes I really just didn't care for. But that was the standard. C's were unacceptable. And being out in college alone for the first time in my life, having that kind of fun, really just happy I was out of the house and on my own, did not result in the types of grades I needed to have an okay time getting through the end of the business school curriculum. So I made a pivot. And Heather was in the journalism school studying journalism, and I love her. So I was just like, I'm going to go pick a degree in the journalism school, and I chose public relations, which in my mind I thought would be a cakewalk. And I actually discovered that it really paired nicely with what I was learning outside the classroom, which was the start of my career as a financial advisor, which was running parallel since my freshman year of college through graduation. It actually was an amazing complement of education. You think about handling certainly crisis management, handling communication, directly to clients, to the public. There's no shortage of media that we get to be a part of here. So I got to train myself up before formally training myself up of how to deal with the press, how to deal with media, how to communicate at arguably a pre-professional level.
So the parallel track you mentioned with finance, is that working in your dad's firm?
Yeah, that was coming home after my freshman year with not great grades and a very worried father as to whether or not his son was going to make it out alive. Definitely a worrywart, to the point where he asked me, what I was planning to do my the summer going into my sophomore year. And I said, I'm going right back to school because that place looks fun as hell. And I just had such a blast. We're just going to go do summer classes. I was going to go.
It's just what every parent wants to hear.
Yeah, hey, I get to go live in the fraternity house now. I'll get an early start on that. And I'm just going to go to school. And, I think he was like, this is a country club for kids. Of course he wants to go back there. And he said, hey, before you go back, how about you do the first half of the summer studying this exam called your Series 7, which is your general securities license, and pass that. And then, go up for the second half of summer and get things going. And, I thought, I'm already studying stuff as it is, what's the big deal of hanging out at my pool and, studying an exam. And there I was studying for my general securities license, and by the skin of my teeth, I passed it before going back to school. So I was a registered representative.
What was the plan after graduation?
Yeah, this is clearly...
Or maybe the question should be, was there a plan for after graduation?
Looking back at all of this, and it's actually deep and complex, and it's okay to go there. The relationship with my father, both personally and professionally, but we'll keep it professionally for now. I think from the jump, he saw a son coming into business, a succession plan, something to pass on. And remember, he worked with his father, and they successfully exited their business in Westchester, New York, before we moved down to Florida when I was 2. So he is maybe replaying, some things in his mind in terms of how things would go. And I was probably just lost in terms of what direction in life what I wanted for myself. I don't really think anyone posed that question to me. Doug, what do you want to do? What do you want for yourself? I think his concern and worry, kind of override that thought, and ended up putting me on this glide path of, okay, he'll get his licenses, he'll become an associate advisor in the practice, he'll become a financial advisor, help me grow, and one day pass this off. And I just... unfortunately, for lack of having my own desire and drive to do something. By the way, I didn't dislike it at all. Like I actually enjoyed what I was learning: financial planning, writing financial plans, doing the trades. I mean, I was doing stuff at 19, 20 that I don't think any, associate advisor, any licensed person would really get their hands on unless they were working in a family business, unless they had a father or a mother or a parent, saying, hey, I want you to try to do this. So big props for getting that early experience, because I learned so much, and I learned I liked it. So I was put on this path that I kind of didn't question or really have the maturity to understand where it was going, or enough of a vision of my own, to the point where graduating from college, fully licensed, my last 3 credits for my undergraduate degree, I walked into the dean's office and said, hey, I'm studying this thing called the CFP exam. I need you to sign off on giving me 3 accredited college credits, for this. And he said, oh, I love this. I remember Dean Wright. He signed right off. And those were my last 3 credits for my undergraduate degree. It was the first module of the CFP exam, or of the education requirement. And moved home. Heather went immediately to law school in New York City, and we were now long distance. And I was miserable. I mean, absolutely miserable, working and living at home post college after spending 4 of the best years of my life with someone I loved so much. It's actually heartbreaking. It was really, really hard to manage, and obviously something gave.
What's the timing of when you moved to New York?
Terrible timing, Chris.
if I'm reading things correctly, the timing of you moving to New York syncs up with the start of the great financial crisis.
Whether I'm off by a day or so, and I really don't, I really think this is the time, like the exact timing of it. When I got off the plane at JFK to move up to New York City, literally shipped 4 boxes and bought a mattress that day at Sleepy's on 5th Avenue. I think Bear Stearns collapsed. So this is October 2008. So boom. I mean, the random, remember Craigslist? The random Craigslist roommate that Heather had found me. Shout out to Mitesh. I remember meeting him for the first time in person at a restaurant called Duke's with Heather. And first thing he said to me is, I think I lost $20,000 on Washington Mutual today.
Oof.
Yeah, big oof. I think within the weeks, he looked at me and he was just like, he got laid off from his bank. And he told me, he's like, I got 3 months to find a new job or you're going to have a new random roommate.
And at any point, did you think I might be moving back to Florida? Or was it just, no, this is the move I've made, and however it works out, I'm going to make it work?
There was no way, there was no set of circumstances that I was moving back to Florida. I would do anything to make it work. And I refused to be that kid who, especially since the fallout of look at the tumult I went through to, rip myself out of a family practice, to tell your father no. Think of like the rejection he probably dealt with there, let alone the struggles we were having personally at that time. There was no way after that kind of action. Also, moving up, this is a love story. Let's not forget it, right? I needed to be with Heather, and we were in a tough spot. We thought she thought this wasn't going to work. And sure enough, I made the move, and we had to get our relationship back on track. And that took some time, even though she was there to help guide me into my life in New York City. And she had her own set of circumstances to deal with as the economy was imploding and she was taking on student loan debt. So no, I was not going home. And I've always been confident. Maybe it's through the experiences that I had with, fixing computers or being extroverted or sales. Like, I was always confident, and this might sound cocky, but I was always confident I could make money. One way or the other, I knew I could do that, and if push came to shove, I would do just that. And I wasn't gonna be on a plane back. Being a boomerang was off the table.
Quick question: what are you doing on Saturday, February 28th? If you live anywhere in the greater Washington, D.C. area, come join me at the Crooked Crab Brewery in Maryland for a live recording of the Check Your Balances podcast. Ross Anderson and Dan Maseka are certified financial planners. They are the hosts of Check Your Balances, and they're doing a live recording of their show. Doors open at noon. The show starts at 1, and it's free to attend. Now, if you want one of the fantastic beers that they make at the Crooked Crab Brewery, then yeah, you'll have to make sure you have some form of payment on hand. They also have their own brick oven pizza that they make right there on the premises. Saturday, February 28th, Crooked Crab Brewery in Maryland. As I said before, if you like talking about money with like-minded people, if you like drinking beer and eating pizza, it doesn't get much better than this. So I hope to see you there. All right, let's get back to Douglas. So a question that I ask guests often is, how much did you talk about money with your spouse before you got married? And this is the first time. And when I ask that question, I will tell you that every once in a while I think to myself, I wonder if I was talking to the spouse, if their memory syncs up with this.
Yeah.
And in this situation, I've actually spoken to your spouse about this. So I know her answer, but I'm sure it's going to sync up. But memory is a funny thing. So how much did you and Heather talk about money before you got married?
Quite a bit. I think we were very transparent with where
Congratulations, you passed the test. That is also what she said.
Awesome. It's not like we wrote a book about it or anything like that. We were very open with our finances. I think we found ourselves in very similar situations. And I don't just mean that financially. Just look, she's an only child, product of divorce. I found myself divorcing myself from my entire family and now an only child in New York. We have very similar attributes, although I'm not an only child product of divorce. Later would be a product of divorce. But no, we saw that we both had put ourselves in a position of needing to just help ourselves and lift our own, we were partners in that. My skill set as a financial advisor, look, I started at 20. At this point, I'm 24. So 4 years of being a licensed professional how silly to not take a look at where we stood financially and how we were going. I mean, this is after it took maybe 6 months for us to really get our relationship back on track and, reconcile, the distance that was between us. That was not easy. But when we got there, and that's why we didn't move in the second I showed up in New York City, we both agreed that that is not a good move. She was still in law school. I was getting started. But we finally, when we moved in together, and this is usually the juncture where people should be having these conversations. You're starting to share real expenses like rent, and now the food, and you're going to spend a life together. That's going to scale, right? So, very cognizant of the student debt she was taking out, right? So they were talking multiple 6 figures of graduate loans for her law school, now in an economic environment, a labor environment that is not ideal. I always looked for a solve, and I never looked at $200,000 in student loans and sky high New York City rent as something that would stop 2 hardworking, very well educated, supportive people from succeeding. That same attitude that I had around no way I'm going home really just morphed into no way we're not going to make this work. I mean, she'll tell you about the meals we cooked together, the lunches we've packed together, the decisions we've made together for the apartments that we rented to give ourselves a really fair shake. The conversations we had around which law firms, she would be working for, in the same way that she would guide me in any major decision I've made around my career.
Let's go to the speed round. They say money can't buy happiness. I think we both know that's not true. So what is a thing you have bought that makes you happy?
I'm a serial hobbyist. I think that it depends on the hobby of the season or year or handful of years. I think being a collector, and that 90s kid collector still lives inside me right now. It's been for a few years now. I collect tequila. I like that spirit particularly. So I think it's the art. It's the whole thing of finding the thing, right? It's as much as I love the juice itself, and now there's probably more of it than I can possibly drink in a lifetime, which is story for another time. Just the act of finding the thing you're looking for, the collector mentality, it makes me so happy. You can see I'm smiling. It makes me so happy. So
let me delve into this just slightly, because sure. I had heard an interview recently where someone was talking, someone who was a book collector, not by trade, but just that was their hobby. They loved books. And they expressed a little bit of sort of wistfulness about the fact that there was a point in time where it was hard to find certain books, and this guy got a lot of pleasure of going to used bookstores and looking for certain copies, that kind of thing. And now it's basically with a few clicks of a button, you can find it. You can find it on Amazon. You can find it on eBay. That kind of thing. Is that your experience as well, or you're like, no, I'm just sort of in this for the hobby, and the hunt is not as much of the pleasure?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's funny. I think you can secure almost any bottle you want. Let's apply it to tequila, right? I think you can secure almost any bottle you want online. How about this? Before there was tequila in my life, and there still is, let's go use coffee as a very good comparable here, because, all right, both things you're drinking here, right? Coffee is still one of my favorite hobbies, and a gourmet bag will run you $20 to $30 for however many ounces, 10 to 12 ounces, let's say. I get all my coffee online, but the fact that there's so many different varieties of coffee and things to try and varietals. It doesn't matter where I'm getting it. I'm going to get that bag. I'm going to, take a big whiff once I get it. And I'm going to start thinking of all the ways I'm going to brew that coffee. So yeah, I mean, I look and same with the tequila and as well as the coffee. Going into a liquor store, I love stopping at some beaten off the road store that maybe has a bottle they don't know, they don't even know what they have. Like that's the fun part, right? Coffee, it's a little different, right? You actually have to know what you have. And you're going into when you find a good bag of coffee, it's because those people very much curated that bag. Tequila too. You go into some shops, they're like, wow. Look at that wall. Look at that lineup. Whoever is curating this selection knows a thing or two about it. But you don't get that. You don't get the, oh, look what I found, with dust on it in the corner on coffee. That'll just doesn't work that way.
No, definitely not. Have you ever made a purchase in your adult lifetime that you regret and sometimes you still think about it?
I don't think there is a huge purchase out there that I beat myself up over or kick myself over, which is good. It's probably death by 1,000 cuts with like little things, and I'm really digging deep to try and find something that like I look at it, I'm like, why did I do this? This is good. This is good. Not to sound like I have it all figured out here, but
no, I think, one time I got served up a video of the comedian Nate Bargatze talking about being at home and he wanted to watch the movie Goodfellas. So he just went to Amazon Prime and he could rent it for $5. So he did. And then 2 days later, he realized that Goodfellas was already on Netflix, which is a streaming service he already had a subscription to. And he was just, again, it's $5, but he was just beating, it was like, wow, I just threw away $5 on Goodfellas.
Yeah, that's like me I had a $20 off coupon for like takeout the other night and I checked out and forgot to put the coupon in there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you idiot. Like, what? Yeah. I love that example. It shows the psychology behind it. It's not always tied to the dollars.
What is the last thing you splurged on just for yourself? Not for wife, kids, or friends, just for you?
I like clothes. I like to dress well. And I always tell Heather this, you might as well spend the money on the high-end quality like shoes and take care of them because they'll take care of you. Like, I have a pair of loafers. My first pair of Ferragamos, like they're 13 years old. They look like they're 1 year old. And I wear them all the time.
What is one thing about money that you wish you knew earlier in life?
So this is the crazy part. For someone who was very good at making money at a young age, I really wish, and being the son of a financial professional, I wish my father or I wised up. I'll take responsibility and put some of that money into some investments for myself. With my curiosity and knack for technology, I really wish I had put a portion of this money into, could have been as simple as the S&P 500 or some stocks that I loved back then that still exist today. And oh boy, like we all joke, like, had I only put $10,000 in Apple or Amazon or Nvidia or something like that. And the joke is, yeah, you'd have puked all over yourself as you went through 2 or 3. You would have had to survive 2 to 3 epic, 80+% drawdowns to say, I did it. I got, I got it early. No, you would have sold. And especially if you're like 20 something, you would have been like, no, we're done here. So I wish I got my investment journey started a little sooner. I think it could have tilted, the financial odds in our favor a little bit more.
What is a charitable cause that you'd like to support?
That's a really good question. I'm so fortunate that there hasn't been any like major like affliction in my life. I think people usually give to the causes that have afflicted them or their family here. I like giving to causes that help veterans primarily. I'm a grandson of, my grandfather was my hero, served in World War II. I wear his dog tag every day. And it's just my way of saying thank you and honoring him and the sacrifice that he made and that our soldiers make every day. So not one in particular, but that's typically where my heart and dollars go.
Do you have a favorite movie or TV series that has money as a through line?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Succession, as far as like stuff lately that really touches on money and business, my mind instantly goes to the Roy family and Succession. One of my favorite things that I got to do in the past 5 years from a media perspective outside of your podcast here, Chris, is a financial breakdown of the Roy family for the Wall Street Journal.
Oh, nice.
And it was the week of the season. No, it was the week of the series finale. So it was just like all these, and I love the show. So all these things came together here. Yeah. So you're looking at money through the lens of obviously the mega wealthy, and able to distill those concepts down to the not mega wealthy, like me.
The last thing is a penny for your thoughts. And this is just any kind of life wisdom that you've picked up along the way that you can share with people who are listening. It doesn't have to be about money. It can be about anything.
Yeah. This applies to money and just anything in life. And this is my favorite one. It's learn to play long games very well. I think the greatest rewards in life come from your ability to be consistent and disciplined and do boring things primarily over very long periods of time. This is true in business. This is true in your personal and mental health. It's true when it comes to compounding returns and investing almost anywhere you look. If you can play the long game, you'll win those big prizes there.
Douglas and Heather Boneparth write a Substack called The Joint Account, which you can check out. And if you haven't already, check out their book, Money Together. It's a really great read. It's got practical advice and some great stories as well. I'm Chris Hill. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next week.